Hey folks, today we're going to talk about Power BI projects. Power BI projects are made up of a bunch of text files and folders that are editable. So instead of having one PBIX file that's a mystery of what's included, you have readable text documents. And the beauty of them being text documents is that they are version controllable with Git. So gone are the days of creating the perfect workbook only for someone to make some edits to it and you have no idea what they did. So we're going to show the basics of Power BI projects. Over here on the left, I have VS Code window open, and we're going to use this to explore the various elements of Power BI projects. On the right here, I have Power BI Desktop. I apologize, it's a little bit small, but hopefully this illustrates the concepts here. So the very first thing we're going to do is we are just going to save the project, a blank project. So when I come to save it, I want to make sure I save it as a pbip instead of a pbix. So I'll select the pbip and I'll save my first project. If you don't see that pbip option, really important to come over to your options and settings, go specifically to your options, and then you're going to navigate to your preview features and make sure that you have this option for pbip enabled, and also make sure TMDL and PBIR are both selected. These are the readable text formats for semantic models as well as reports. So just make sure those three boxes are checked. Okay, so since I saved this blank file, you'll notice that there's a few different folders and files created. So first off, notice that there's two folders here for reports and semantic model. The report section is going to be where all of the information about your visuals are going to be saved. The semantic model is just that. So your data source, your tables, your columns, your measures, everything like that, that's going to be here. It does also populate a git ignore file. So you'll notice a cache file is in here. So when you download data, for example, when you import data from like a database like Snowflake, it's not going to commit it to the repository, right? It's going to just ignore it. And then you have the actual pbip file itself, which has very little information to it. You can see here right now, it's just referencing where our report folder is. So with that in mind, I'm just going to go ahead and create a blank Git repo, and then I will just make a commit after staging some files here. Okay, so now we have all of these files committed. We'll have a better understanding of what changes when we go and we edit the report. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm simply just going to create a new tab here. So I'm going to create this tab, right? And nothing changes in my VS Code until I save the file. Once I save the file, you'll notice that there are some changes that happen here. Everything kind of in green is what changed. So let's talk a little bit about the structure of what's here. So you'll notice in this report folder, we have this definitions folder, which has all of the individual pages in it. So for example, this page that was just created, you can see it says page 2. And also it gives you can see information like what's the display option, it fits to the page, what are the dimensions, all of that is contained here. So if you ever need to make edits to like the dimensions, for example, you could do that directly here in the text as opposed to doing it through the UI. Do know that if you make any changes to the text, you need to close the workbook and reopen it for it to populate. However, any changes you make in Power BI, as soon as you save it, they'll be reflected in the text over here. So let's just say, I don't like this page 2 name, right? Maybe I don't like even numbers. I'm going to rename this page 3. I'm going to save it. And you see it quickly updated to page 3. So any edits you make here will be reflected there. Okay, next up, let's take a look at semantic model. So you'll notice we do have a folder here for the semantic model, but this is already populated with kind of some placeholder files. We're not actually connected to any data yet. What I do want to do though is make sure I commit all of my changes here so we can just kind of understand what happens. In addition to some of the changes that we know of, like renaming, like creating this page and renaming it to page 3. There's also some other things that get changed as well. That can be a little bit challenging when working with Power BI projects. Is sometimes you'll be presented with a very large diff, and it's hard to understand exactly what changes are impactful to the analysis. But it's something you kind of get the hangover for what you can over time of what you can ignore versus what you should pay attention to. Okay, so let's just go ahead and make some changes here. I'm going to say create report page. And we will keep going. Okay, let's go to Power BI and let's connect some data. So I'm just going to grab a file from Kaggle. It's a file of top-rated movies, and we'll see that. We'll see kind of the structure here, just a handful of columns. We'll go ahead and load this. It's thinking for a second here. Loaded all the rows. So let's go ahead and save it. And we'll see now a bunch of kind of files were changed here, right? So very first thing let's take a look at is this TMDL file for top rated movies. This is the file that we connected to, right? You can see it's a table. It's called top rated movies. You can see the different columns that are listed here, like the title of the movie, for example. Not only does it give you the name of Power BI, but also the source name. So for example, if you ever have changes in the names of your source, you can handle that here as opposed to having to try and mess with the actual title up here. Let's say you don't want to break the visuals in your reports. So that's one of the files that's created. You also see that date tables, for example, are created automatically since the field imported a date table. You also get some information about relationships, like for example, between the top rated movies file as well as the date table. And then you'll see some changes to the model as well. So I'll go ahead and I'll just stage and commit these changes. We'll say connect data. Okay, so now let's say we want to work with this semantic model. The very first thing that I'll do is maybe I want to connect or create a measure, excuse me. So I'll just come over here and I'll create a measure. And I'm just going to call this total votes, right? And it's just going to be a simple sum of that vote count column. And let's say I want to give that column a description. So I'll just come over here and say it's a sum of vote count field. And maybe let's give it some a formatting. Let's add that 1000 separator in there. I think that's all we need to do. And let's go back here and let's save it. Okay, so we'll come back over here to our Git panel. We'll see a couple files have changed. First, if we go to this TMDL file, you'll see that the measure has been created. So you can just see it's calling it a measure, it's total votes. And here's the DAX expression. You can see the format string along with it. And the triple slashes above the measure, this is the comment that we gave it to it. And there you go. That's how that measure is created. You also notice this diagram layout. This is just going to refer to kind of when you go into the model view and you look at how all the different parts are connected and stuff. You can largely ignore that file. So I'll go ahead and commit these. And now we have our first measure. So the next step, let's just say we want to create some visuals. So how about we go to our first page here, right? And we're going to create just an extremely basic visual. Let's grab a line chart here, and let's add our release date. You see it adds it to the x-axis. We'll add our total votes to the y-axis, and we have kind of a super small chart here. So you have collapse filters here, and you'll see here's looks like it's showing it by year by default, which is what I want to see. Just for simplicity, though, I am going to remove these other fields just for the moment. So we'll go ahead and we will save this visual. And now you see we have some changes here. So first off, you notice this pages JSON here, which is in the root of the overall pages folder. You'll see that now the active page name is this reference here. This reference here corresponds to this page 1, because last time we saved it, we had page 3 open. Now let's take a look at the visual itself. So we'll come here and we'll see that this visual is now basically under page 1 and under a folder called visuals. Here's the visual, and it gives you the information as like what's the position on the page, what's the height and the width. And this is actually really helpful if you're trying to be as precise as possible. You can change these numbers to exactly what you want. And it's more precise than just saying like 1201 in the UI. It'll give you 1201 exactly. So now that we have this created, you can see that this visual is a line chart, and you can see that the category or the x-axis here is our release date, and the y-axis here is total votes. So we can go ahead and just say create line chart. And there you have it. Now we have our first visual. So it's really helpful that you can see kind of this lineage of all of the steps, and you can develop in chunks, which is really nice. So for example, I recently did a project where I had to rename hundreds of fields across the semantic model and reports, and I was able to batch it and understand where potential errors were coming from by going through this process, which was really helpful. Okay, so now let's just say like, okay, we don't want this as a line chart. Maybe we want this as a column chart, right? I'm gonna go ahead and just save this, and you can see what changes here. So we'll come to our Git pane, and we'll notice that we changed from line chart to column chart. It removed some other information here, some filters, which is interesting. But let's say, I don't like that change. If I were to hit back here and discard these changes, remember that I have to reload the workbook. So I'm simply just going to undo that change with Control Z in Power BI for now, and I will save it. And we'll reload our pane here. Yeah, it still removes some of this filter config down here. That's okay. It's not affecting our overall visual. Everything's going to be kind of the same as we set it up. So next steps. So let's just say this report is exactly the way that we want it, and we're ready to publish it. You have two options. First, you can publish this directly from Power BI, and if you hit this publish, you can send it to Power BI service, but it sends it as a PBIX. So it'll group it into one file and send it into Power BI service just as one file. So if other people want to make edits to it in the future, they're not going to be doing it from Git. They're going to be doing it from a single file like old times. If you connect a Git repository to Power BI, Power BI can integrate with that repository and pull in the changes directly from your Git repository. So that's extremely helpful to be able to develop with Git and be able to see all your changes there. So I hope this is a helpful, quick introduction to Power BI projects. Thanks for spending time with us.